ideal people to represent South Carolina to the rest of the country. Now, I have the sense that you all are hardcore supporters of the campaign. Is that correct? Of course. Yes. Is that accurate? Yes. I have that sense. I don't know what that's true. All right, and totally be honest. Some of you, it sounds like, are what I call yang curious. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to talk to you all as if you're yang curious and you're not sure whether or not I'm your president. So I'm going to give you a sense as to how I got here. Because most all of you know I'm not a career politician. I'm new to the field. So how the heck did I come to run for president? And how the heck am I now in either 5th or 6th place, depending upon which poll you look at? Ah, those are two really serious questions, right? I'm running for president because I believe we're going through the greatest economic transformation in our country's history. And I think that is what drove Donald Trump into the White House in 2016. I spent the last 7 years running a nonprofit called Venture for America that I started. How many of you all work in nonprofits? A bunch of you. How many of you volunteer for nonprofits? You should all put your hand up and come on. At least pretend. So I started a nonprofit in 2011, and the goal was to help create jobs around the country because it was right after the financial crisis, and I thought the financial crisis was just a terrible time and sign for the country where we had so many wannabe whiz kids heading to Wall Street to create these exotic financial instruments and derivatives and mortgage-backed securities that crashed the economy. So I thought, that's a train wreck. Let's not do more of that. And so I thought, well, what I want people to do instead is head to places like Detroit and Birmingham and Cleveland and St. Louis and New Orleans to start businesses and help create jobs. But that's a very, very tall order. How many of you all have started a business or organization? So you know, if you have your hand up, two things. Number one, it's much harder than anyone lets on.
Yeah.
And number two, when someone asks you how it's going, what do you say?
Great.
There's only one answer to that question. My first business went great until it failed. My parents told people I was still doing something else because they're Asian and it was much bigger story. So you know it's super hard. I knew it was super hard. So I thought it was going to be way too high a bar to send people to new cities and somehow start companies and create jobs. That would be impossible. But what I thought was achievable is for them to go work at existing growth companies and help those companies grow. Do that for 2 years as apprentices, and then after 2 years, if they wanted to start their own business, then we'd have some seed money and mentors to help them do so. There's a national entrepreneurship apprenticeship program called Venture for America. I quit my job, donated some money to start it, and ran it for 7 years. Helped create about 4,000 jobs in 15 cities around the country. I was honored by the Obama administration as an ambassador of entrepreneurship, so I got to bring my wife to meet the president. My in-laws were really excited about me for like a week. They were like, look at these pictures with our daughter as the president. We're here in South Carolina. How many of you met President Obama? I bet a bunch of you, right? I thought it was going to be more than that. What was he doing? How many of you met Michelle? Let's try that. Again, I really thought would have been more. So I was getting honors and awards for helping create Venture for America, but I had this sinking feeling that my work was like pouring water into a bathtub that had a giant hole ripped in the bottom, where I'd go to communities and see that things were getting worse, not better. And then people were clapping me on the back saying like, nice work, and I was like, no, I'm not really solving the problem. Then Donald Trump becomes our president in 2016. How did you all react when that happened? People crying.
I'm still crying.
Tears, shock,
Yeah.
despair, disappointment. To me, it was a giant red flag. It said, stop what you're doing. Tens of millions of Americans just decided to take a bet on the narcissist reality TV star as president. This is not business as usual anymore. Especially if, like me, I was literally Obama's entrepreneurship ambassador, thinking, wow, my work's not doing the trick. So then I started digging into the numbers. If you were to turn on the TV to figure out why Donald Trump won in 2016, why would you think that he's our president today?
A lot of people didn't vote. They lied.
Lies, low turnout, Russia, Facebook, Hillary Clinton, emails, Comey, all that stuff sort of mixed together.
Supposedly outsider.
Russia, yeah, Russia again. Or the outsider, possibly. Disruptor.
Yeah.
I'm a numbers guy, and so I went through the numbers to try and figure out whether there was a pattern, and I found it. We blasted away 4 million manufacturing jobs over the last number of years, and where were those jobs? Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, all the swing states that Donald Trump needed to win and did win. And if you doubt me, there's a straight line up between industrial automation and the movement towards Trump in each voting district. You can line it up and you see the lines all just go up to the right. You all lost about 90,000 manufacturing jobs here in South Carolina. And you know what happens when that planter factory closes. The shopping district closes next, people start leaving, that town doesn't recover. That story played out over and over again in the swing states that Trump won. And unfortunately, what we did to those manufacturing jobs is now happening to your retail jobs. How many of you noticed stores closing around where you lived in where you live here in South Carolina? And why are those stores closing? Amazon.
Yes.
One word answer. Amazon soaking up $20 billion in business every year, causing 30% of your stores and malls to close. Most common job in the United States, retail clerk. Average retail clerk's a 39-year-old woman making between $9 and $10 an hour. Her store closes, what is her next move? How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year? Zero. That is your math, South Carolina. 20 billion out, 30% of your stores close, zero back. How many of you have seen the self-serve kiosks in a McDonald's or fast food restaurant? Every location in the country the next 2 years. When you call a customer service line of a big company and you get the software, I'm sure you do the same thing I do, which is you pound 000, say human, representative. You get don't you all do that? Yeah. In 2 or 3 short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hello, Andrew, how's it going? What can I do for you? It'll be fast, efficient, delightful. You might not even know it's software. You don't need genuine artificial intelligence to do that. You need just hundreds of voice prompts, a decision tree, and then software that can detect changes in the tone of voice and understand the words you're saying. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work in call centers right now, make $14 an hour? How many of you know a truck driver here in South Carolina? My friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. And we just had a cross-country robot truck trip that transported 20 tons of butter from San Jose, California to Pennsylvania. Why did they choose butter? I have no idea. Very strange headline. It was like, robot truck transports butter. They're working on robot trucks because they believe they can save $168 billion a year in labor costs, fuel efficiency, equipment utilization, because the robot truck never needs to stop. Drives 24/7. What does this mean for the 3.5 million Americans who drive a truck for a living, or the 7 million Americans who work at truck stops, hotels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal every day? We just went through the 5 most common jobs in the United States. Administrative and clerical, including call centers, retail, food service, truck driving and transportation, and manufacturing. These 5 job categories comprise half of all American jobs. In South Carolina, it's higher. It's closer to 55 or 60%. All of these jobs are getting eliminated very, very quickly. We're in the 3rd inning of the greatest economic and technological transformation in our country's history, the 4th Industrial Revolution. When is the last time you heard a politician say the words 4th Industrial Revolution?
Never. You.
Just now. And I'm barely a politician. So these are the numbers I was going through in early 2017. I said, okay, I get it. We're going through this transformation and we are scapegoating immigrants for things that immigrants have very little to do with. When you go to the factory in Michigan or Ohio, it's wall-to-wall robot arms and machines. When you go to the Amazon fulfillment center that's closing on the malls, it's wall-to-wall robots and machines. And when there are humans in the Amazon fulfillment center, they're actually wearing bracelets that measure how many items they're packing every hour. Have you seen this? And literally, it'll start chirping and beeping at you if you're not working fast enough, and then eventually they'll fire you. There was an Amazon employee who had like a heart attack and then was like lying on the floor and they couldn't figure it out, and then he passed. And I thought to myself, well, you would think at least the bracelet would be able to tell that the person was like having a heart attack. So this is what's happening in our economy. Our economy has gone from inhuman to punishing and punitive very, very quickly. It's pushing more and more Americans to the side, and they're reacting, we're reacting, because we don't even know what's going on. Our politicians aren't talking about it. Our media companies are not talking about it, unless I get on MSNBC and start talking about it. When I went to Washington, D.C., I laid out the facts, and I said to them, what are we going to do to help our people transition? What do you think the folks in D.C. said to me when I asked, what are we going to do? Yeah. One was, we should study that. Number two was, we can't talk about that. I was literally, it's actually number one. We can't talk about that. Number two, we should study that. Number three was, we must educate and retrain all Americans for the jobs of the future. Sounds pretty good, right? How many of you heard a politician say something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they all say. But I said to the folks who said we need to retrain everyone, I say, that sounds great. I took a look at the studies. Do you all want to guess how effective government-funded retraining programs were for the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs in the Midwest?
Not very effective.
I'm anchoring you low because it is low. The real number is 0 to 15%. They're a total dud. Half of the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs never worked again. Of that group, half filed for disability. And you then saw surges in suicides and drug overdoses in those communities to unprecedented levels, to the point where America's life expectancy has now declined for the last 3 years in a row. Do you know the last time America's life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row?
Spanish flu.
Spanish flu of 1918. Global pandemic that killed millions. She's Yang Gang. Only Yang Gang.
Sorry, I knew that.
A global pandemic that killed millions 100 years ago. That's the last time America's life expectancy declined for 3 years in a row. This time it's declining because suicides and drug overdoses have both overtaken vehicle deaths for the first time in American history as causes of death. In a developed country, it is highly unusual for your life expectancy to ever go down. It ordinarily just goes up because you get richer, stronger, healthier, things get better. In America, it went down and then down and then down again. This is not normal in the least. This is one time in a century. So when I said to the folks in DC, hey, we're terrible at retraining by the numbers, their response was, well, I guess we'll get better at it. And the fact is, the folks in DC succeed whether or not we succeed or fail. What's going on in our communities has absolutely nothing to do with what's happening in Washington, D.C.
So true.
The fact is, they are now the richest city in our country. What do they produce? That's a stumper, right? And the debate, I said, bad decisions. Apparently bad decisions make you a lot of money, because that's how they're the richest city in our society today. So this is the truth of DC, that they don't care about what happens to us on this level. And a person in DC said something that sent me here to you all tonight. He said, Andrew, you're in the wrong town. No one here is going to do anything about this set of problems, because fundamentally, this is not a town of leaders, this is a town of followers. And the only way we will do anything about it is if you were to create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads. And I heard this and I said, challenge accepted. I will be back in 2.5 years with the wave. That was 2 years ago, and that is what sent me here to you all tonight. So what is the wave? What are we going to do? I love campaigning in South Carolina because you all have the future of the country in your hands. Most of our fellow Americans look up and they see the government pipes clogged with money, millions of dollars of lobbyist cash, and they say there's nothing that they can do about it. They are generally correct. There is nothing they can do about it. But you can. You must. If you decide to send a different vision to the rest of the country, we can flush the pipes clean. And when we flush the pipes, what is the vision? What are we going to do after we have control of the government? When you first heard of me, you probably heard of me as the Asian guy who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month, right? And the first time you heard that, I know it seemed too good to be true, a gimmick. This will never happen. But this is not my idea, and this is not a new idea. Thomas Paine was for it at the founding of the country, called it the citizen's dividend for all Americans. Martin Luther King fought for it in the 60s. In his book, Chaos or Community, in 1967, he said we should have a guaranteed minimum income for all Americans, and it is what he was fighting for when he was assassinated in 1968. I sat down with Martin Luther King's son, Martin Luther King III, in Atlanta, and he said this was his dad's vision, this is what he was fighting for. And he agreed with me that we have sanitized Dr. King's memory. We celebrate his birthday every single year, and what do you always see? I have a dream speech, you know? And the suggestion is that it was beautiful, and his dream is on its way to being accomplished. What it never says is that this man was fighting for a guaranteed minimum income for all Americans, an income floor that would improve our way of life. Never says that. After Dr. King's passing, this idea still had a ton of support. 1,000 economists endorsed it. It passed the U.S. House of Representatives twice in 1971 under Richard Nixon. It was called a Family Assistance Plan. And then 11 years later, one state passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that? Alaska. And how does Alaska pay for it? Oil. And what is the oil of the 21st century, South Carolina?
Technology.
Technology, data, AI, self-driving cars and trucks. A study just came out that said that our data is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that study? How many of you have access to a Netflix password? So there's a documentary called The Great Hack that references this study. So where's all this data money going? Tens of billions of dollars of revenue getting generated every year selling and reselling our data. Did we all get data checks in the mail? No. So where did the data checks go? They went to Facebook, Amazon, Google, and these trillion-dollar tech companies that are paying zero or near zero in taxes. And we're all looking around being like, what the heck is going on in our communities? So that is the set of problems that you all have to solve. We're actually here tonight. So you can say Amazon should not be paying zero in taxes, less than everyone in this room. Our data is our data, even if we loan it to the tech companies. If anyone's going to make money off of our data, it should be us. This is how we rewrite the rules to work for us. This $1,000 a month, it starts out, well, I'll tell you all. So I'm married. I have 2 jobs, moved the country forward and stay married. So far I'm 2 for 2. And when I decided to run for president, my wife was like, hey baby, love it, love universal basic income. How the heck did it go from being mainstream, 1,000 economists endorse it in the 60s, and now people think it's like utopian, far out, too good to be true?
Socialism,
And so what happened in the last 50 years? And I looked at her and I said, in the last 50 years, we've been collectively brainwashed to confuse economic value and human value as the same thing. We've started to see ourselves all as inputs into the machine, and we're worth whatever the market says we are worth. And if the market says you're valueless, then you're a valueless person. And that is what we have to reverse. That is what we have to unlock. We have to let people know that we are not inputs into the machine. We're the owners. We're the shareholders. We are the point of the economy, not inputs into it. If you put 1,000, we're not the commodities, we're the point. And if you put $1,000 a month into your hands here in South Carolina, which I will be thrilled to do as your president, where will the money actually go in real life? How much of it will stay right here in South Carolina? Most of it. A little bit of it will float up to the cloud. You might get your own Netflix password because you're irritated having to share. But most of the money would go to delicious food and car repairs you've been putting off, and daycare expenses, and local nonprofits, and maybe Democratic Party dues. and whatever you value most. This is the trickle-up economy from our people, our families, and our communities up. And this would work. This would strengthen our way of life, revitalize Main Street businesses, and it doesn't hurt the big guys either. Because the fact is they actually benefit when we have the resources to spend. They get some of that money too. What starts out as seeming too good to be true actually becomes necessary and inevitable when you see the scope of the changes. Because again, we are decimating the most common jobs in our society. I am friends with the folks who are inventing artificial intelligence. And you know how that conversation goes? It goes like this. Hey Andrew, I'm in the lab. I see what's coming out with artificial intelligence. If people knew what I knew, they would be very, very concerned. You know how the conversation never goes? Hey Andrew, I'm in the lab. I know what's coming out. Things are going to be all right. That's not the end of that thought. The more you know, the more concerned you are. I spoke to a group of 70 CEOs in New York City. I asked them, how many of you are looking at having artificial intelligence replace back office clerical workers in your firms? Guess how many hands went up out of 70? All 70. The fact is, you could fire any CEO who is not looking to replace workers with software, because we all know what the incentives are. It's not to take care of your people, it's the bottom line. You don't take care of the bottom line for one quarter, you're out, and they replace you the next quarter. So we have to rewrite the rules to work for us. And I talked about my wife a little bit. We have 2 boys at home, one of whom is autistic. How much is her work as a stay-at-home mom included in our economic measurements? Zero. Caregiving, 0. Coaching, 0. Mentoring, 0. Volunteering, 0. A lot of artists, 0 or near 0. Journalism, trending towards 0. Many of the things that are the most important aspects of our life, our current market system and our economic measurements value at 0. GDP is at record highs while our life expectancy is going down. Which is more important? There are 3 headline numbers that the media and our government and our leaders beat us over the head with all the time, saying things are great. What are the 3 numbers? Stock market prices, GDP, and headline unemployment, right? They're like, hey, things are great. These numbers are garbage, honestly. I'm a numbers guy, and I'll tell you, none of them really tells us anything interesting or useful. GDP is just total productivity. So if you have robot trucks, that's going to be great for productivity. It's going to be very, very bad for many communities and Americans. If you have a natural disaster that levels a town, that's actually positive for GDP, because then you have to spend money rebuilding the town. Does anyone think that town getting leveled is a good thing? They're like, oh, this is going to be good for GDP. Let's track it. Stock market prices. The bottom 80% of Americans own 8% of stock market wealth. The bottom 50% own 0. This is a measurement that corresponds to the top 20% of your society. It's essentially meaningless for the bottom 80%. And headline unemployment does not measure if you drop out of the workforce, doesn't measure if you're working 2 or 3 jobs to get by, doesn't measure the fact that 40% of recent college graduates are underemployed in a job that doesn't require a degree, and they have tens of thousands of dollars in student loans. When Donald Trump was running for president in 2016, he said the headline unemployment rate's fake news. Remember that?
Yeah.
He said this number is garbage. And then he became president, and all of a sudden the numbers became real. He was right back when he was running. The number is garbage. Like, I know what the number says, and it's meaningless. It actually looks better if more people drop out of the workforce. Right now, our labor force participation rate in the United States is 63%, a multi-decade low in the same levels as El Salvador and Costa Rica. Millions of Americans have left the workforce, and it makes our unemployment number better, because the more people that leave the workforce, the fewer people that are looking. It's a very, very dark system we've set up. Again, raise your hand if you've run a business or organization. How would that business or organization do if you had the wrong measurements? Pretty terribly. That is where we are right now in the United States of America. We have these measurements that are leading us off a cliff. What measurements should we be using? What would actually make you happy if I said it got better here in your community? Average income and affordability. Yeah, that would help. How about mental health and freedom from substance abuse? If that got better, you would actually be happy.
Happiness index.
Yeah, happiness index. How about childhood success rates? How about clean air and clean water?
Yeah.
How about proportion of Americans who can retire in quality circumstances? How about life expectancy and wellness? That would be a very core one. And if you look at all of these measurements, you will see that we're in a mental health recession, we're in a wellness recession, we're in an affordability crisis. Like, all of our social measurements are going down very, very fast. As your president, and you're not going to believe this, it's going to seem like a magic trick, but it's actually pretty easy. I'm going to upgrade our economic measurements to mental health, like life expectancy, childhood success rates, environmental sustainability. We have measurements for these things. We invented GDP 100 years ago, and now we're following it off a cliff. Well, how does that make any sense? Even the inventor of GDP, Simon Kuznets, said 100 years ago, this is a terrible measurement for national well-being, and we should never use it as that. And here we are worshiping it 100 years later. As your president, I will update our statistics for the 21st century. I will just go to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, or I'll bring them to me because I'm the president. I'll just kind of come on in the Oval Office. And then we'll say, look, we're going to modernize the measurements for this era, and then I'll present the real numbers to you all every year at the State of the Union in a PowerPoint deck. And the numbers will show very clearly what the problems are in our communities and then how we can invest in solving them. So when you have these measurements, all of a sudden putting $1,000 a month into everyone's hands makes a lot of sense because it's going to make us stronger, healthier, mentally healthier, our kids more able to learn, improve our relationships, decrease domestic violence, decrease hospital visits. That's what $1,000 a month does in real life. And if I was in any other part of the country, some of this would seem too good to be true. But you all have the power to shape the future of this country, here in South Carolina. You and you alone. We all know this race will be up in the air by the time it comes to you. So the question is, what do you do with that power? We flush the pipes, we rewrite the rules, you set a foundation for all Americans, and you rewire the economy to work for us, to work for you. The message I have for you tonight is if it's not working for you, it is not working. And it is up to you to change it. So that's how I came to run for president. Because I saw what is happening and I said, we can do better. So I'm here with you tonight. Again, I'm number 5 or 6 in the polls. We raised $10 million last quarter in increments of only $30 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. But there are a lot of them. And I'll give you all a scoop. We're raising more money this quarter than we did last quarter. Significantly.
All right.
Zero corporate PAC money, all grassroots, all people powered. I am the man to clean it up. I have no agenda but cleaning it up. I will let you in on a non-secret. I do not like Washington, D.C. I want to get in there, clean it up, and go home. And that is what our legislators should be doing. We should have term limits for our legislators so that they come home. Instead, what happens? They go to D.C. and they just crouch there like spiders, trying to stay there as long as possible and make a career out of it. Like, that doesn't help us. No? Like, that town is very institutionalizing in its thinking. I have a friend who went to work on Capitol Hill. He hated lobbyists when he got there. What is he 15 years later?
Lobbyist.
You all know the story. That's exactly right. So we got to get him in. So you got 12 years to do some work, and then you got to come on home. This is how we're going to make it work for us. Donald Trump became our president in part because he got some of the problems right. He said he was going to make America great again, and then what did Hillary Clinton say in response? America's already great.
Yeah.
Remember that? It's been a long 3 years, South Carolina. That was not the right response. We have to acknowledge the depth and severity and reality of the problems in our communities. They are real. But we need real solutions that will help move America forward. What were Donald Trump's solutions? Build a wall, turn the clock back, bring the old jobs back.
Give breaks to millions and billionaires.
I don't think that was part of his platform, but that is what he did in real life. That is what he did in real life. You all know we have to do the opposite. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society as fast as possible in the 21st century. We have to evolve in the way we think about ourselves and our work and our value. And I am the ideal candidate for this job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you very much, Dr. You probably don't know this. Math is an acronym. What does it stand for?
Make America think harder.
Make America think harder. That's right. That is your job, South Carolina. We have to highlight the real problems and have real solutions. But we can do it. We can turn this thing around very, very quickly. The country is very hungry for it. We're going to win. All right. Would love to take some questions from you all.
Oh.
Wow, that was very well done.
You're familiar with Michael Ford?
Martin Ford. Michael Ford.
Martin talked about AI and jobs not coming back.
Martin and I are friends, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So, Martin Ford wrote a book called Rise of the Robots that was very influential. It influenced me a great deal. I think we have copies of my book here tonight. I'm not sure we have enough for everyone. We do? Yes. So I reference his book, and happily, if you read my book, you get some of the highlights of his book. He's a very smart man. I love it, though. It's a great book. Other questions?
Andrew, My question is that old school, taking it old school, we have stopped valuing jobs like wastewater treatment guys,
Yeah.
guys that work in public works,
Yes.
our plumbers,
The real first
our
responders.
HVAC.
Yeah.
So what would you do to actually, but we're gonna be so dumb and we're not
So
gonna be able to
bad.
drink water or
I
anything.
know, it's so bad.
So what would you do to actually, number one, make people see value in the guy that's picking up our trash?
Yeah.
And, you know, what would you do?
Oh, this is, what's your name?
Really?
Oh.
Just kidding, it's Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie. You looked at us, right? Let's give Stephanie a big round of applause. Hey, Wesley, yes. Where's he at? There he is. Oh, no. We need to do a much better job emphasizing the trades, HVAC, manual work, because those jobs are going to be here for a long time. We're losing people, though we're not replacing them. Right now, we've overemphasized college, college, college. It said everyone go to college, go to college, go to college. And the fact is, college is not for everyone. 33% of Americans graduate from college, and that number is relatively stable. It has not shot up over the last number of years. We've said everyone go to college, and what that's done, and this is very dark, but it's true, it's brought down the college completion rate. 41% of people who start college now don't finish within 6 years, which is a sign that we're sending too many people to college. And then on the flip side, only 6% of our high school students are in technical, trade, or apprenticeships. In Germany, that's 59%. Think about that gulf between 6% and 59%. So what we have to do is we have to invest in technical and trade opportunities at the high school level so that kids who want to go into that kind of field see that it's there for them and that it's stable and lucrative. At a cultural level, I want to team up with Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs and then have a public awareness campaign about how great these jobs are. These jobs are going to be here for a long time because it's very, very hard to automate a plumbing job, an HVAC repair job, a wastewater job. Can you imagine what it would take to make a robot plumber? So hard. That's going to be a human plumber for a long time. The way the automation of jobs works, it's not that you get rid of manual jobs and the cognitive jobs are still with us. You get rid of repetitive manual jobs and repetitive cognitive jobs. So what are repetitive cognitive jobs? Accounting, radiology, some pharmacy, some lawyering. Because a lot of the contract review work you're doing, you can do with software faster, more reliably, and more cheaply. So there's a lot of technical and apprenticeship work that's going to be with us for a long, long time. And we need to send more of our young people in that direction and let them know that this is a real field and stop stigmatizing it. I love that question so much, Stephanie.
All right, let me say this. I want to thank everybody for coming out. And I want to say part of the reason that if y'all know me and you've heard me support Yang is because I think he has practical solutions to what's going on in the world and our future. And also, you know, whatever you want to vote, also I want us to be able to open our minds and understand the political process and just don't vote for anybody blindly. Understand what they're talking about. If it makes sense for you, make sure that your house is covered first, and then we'll worry about everybody else. All right? But I think the man has a plan. Like I said, I think it's practical, and I'm a simple person, so I don't need anything that's over elaborate. So he's talking to me, so I just want to say thank you for coming. I don't know how much y'all are going to be here. Feel free to talk.
This is my last event of the night, so I'm going to party with you all as long as you're
We got drinks.
Wait. Everybody's hungry, so you need to tell them what we have.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and what.
Hello everyone, I'm Jessica Carswell, half of Carswell. So we have Isaiah, we're the Food Academy as well as the TFA Cafe. Thank you guys for having us. Thank you so much. We have jerk apricot salmon. We have New Iberian gumbo with stone ground grits. We have beach moonshine barbecue chicken with assorted crackers. And then we have our blue cheese sirloin nachos with flash fried tortilla chips. Put the blue cheese on. Don't not put the blue cheese on.
And I just want to say for their food, this is going to be a different taste. Please take the card. You're going to enjoy it. So patronize them. And everybody enjoy yourself. And thank you for coming out.
Thank you. If anybody would like a picture or something signed with Andrew, if you could line up over here, and then that'll make you perfect to go get food right afterwards. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.